Brother Mark, welcome.
Thanks for having me, bro.
How are you?
I'm in good form. I'm probably physically exhausted, but mentally and emotionally I'm in good form.
Why are you physically exhausted?
I've just been rinsing work for about 10 weeks straight. I just clocked it up yesterday. I don't think I haven't taken a day off in 10 weeks. So I'm at the end of it now, where I'm really on the downside of the ascent, if that makes sense. So I'm just like leaning into, oh, lovely, you're going to have some time now to really switch off and relax. And so I'm high vibration, but physically I feel pretty fucking tired, man.
What's been your focus?
I made 3 films in the last 4 months. One of them is about the Busk that happens, this infamous Busk that's been going on for the last 10 years.
At Christmas
Eve, yeah. With just all the greats of Irish music kind of come out and stand shoulder to shoulder on the street with everybody in aid of a cause that's greater than the individual, an issue like homelessness. And from Bono to Glenn Hansard, Sinead O'Connor, Hosier, Roisin, everyone in between. I was running around for 3 weeks. We had 3 weeks to make that film. It's going on RT1 on the 22nd December at 10:10.
Oh, nice.
But it's just been, a blessing, a privilege to spend time with these. I consider them elders, musicians, thought leaders, beacons of hope and connection for others, like people like Liam Wainley, who I've looked up to for years, and just being close to these people and creating something with them that other people can get something from, because the pandemic has taken the Busk away this year. People can't go out into the streets and have that moment of connectivity and sing songs that are older than the buildings and do it in aid of something much greater. So that was one part, and then there's another film I made about now, like where we're at, like and how music relates to that. And then I just did a film, did like two different music videos that are also short films, and then just trying to live and be healthy. And I released music and running a company, and also dealing with a pandemic and having a mother and a grandmother, and went through a lot of big shifts in the last 3-4 months, just massive life shifts, So I'm like, I'm going to go to Mexico for Christmas.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm going to fly out on Christmas Eve and spend 10 days in Mexico and just fucking sit by the beach and read and refill the cup, man. Just refill it, just when those things that come along in your life that you should be more excited about and you're not. Does that ever happen to you, where you're like, oh, like I really wish I was more, not present, because I do feel quite present in everything that's happening. I'm not numbing myself, but just from a place of fucking appetite to really embrace it and like bring the energy. And when the well isn't full, I'm not the type of person that can fake that. I don't have that on switch where it's like, oh, now we're jazz hands and we're fucking into it. I'm just like, nah, because that double depletes the energy for me when you have to put on the kind of lens of, oh, I'm so excited to be here. It's like, I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm going to be present and give the moment everything that I am for now. But internally, I feel exhausted physically, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit of a light intro.
That's good. When I first met you, it was back when we did the Rewilding of Man with Jodie Kennedy. And I don't know if everyone does this, but when I meet people, I try to quickly assess like what type of person are they. So I can see like how can I connect with them. So is this person a jock? Are they a nerd? Are they an athlete? And so therefore I have something to go off. And sometimes those assumptions can be wrong. And then when I met you, I only spoke to you briefly because it was a gang of us. And I walked away thinking, what is this geezer about? Like I couldn't place you. And then I bumped into you in Cornucopia in Dublin City, which is like a vegetarian restaurant. And we spoke briefly in passing. I was going through the queue. And it was on my mind. And I was like, he seems like an interesting guy. But I don't know what it is about me that intrigues him. And I think what it is, right, is that I work alone. I don't have a team at all. And I do a job, yoga teaching, which, funnily enough, although it is creative, it can, again, become really monotonous when you're doing it every day, 3-4 classes a day, 6 days a week. And you start to, as you were saying, get really complacent in your creativity, but also how grateful you are. And then when I started like looking at you online, I was thinking, like, this guy does a few different things, right? Next thing you know, you bring out a song. And I didn't even know this guy rapped or sung, produced music. And it made me think that I want to harness my creativity way more. And I think that when you are always busy, like if you meet someone on the street and you say, how you doing? And a common response is, busy, busy. Like, what does that mean? And it's seen as like a badge of honor to say I can just keep going. But December, I'm taken completely off because I had surgery on my chest and I actually can't physically do anything really with anyway, I can't do yoga. But I've realized now it's given me a chance to take stock of and to actually look at people that I find that are very creative and get inspiration. And what crept up for me, and just to be completely honest with you, Mark, right? I was like, I envy this guy, right? I was thinking, he works. I was looking at your Instagram and stuff. Like, you work with it looks like a really creative team. You've got the podcast going on. You got your photography, videography. I don't know if that's the right terminology. Music. There's a few different things. And I realized that I want to do way more than what I'm doing. And instead of that envy being, and by the way, envy is different to jealousy. I'm hearing you. You hear me?
I'm hearing you.
Yeah, cool.
Language is futile, but I'm hearing you. You know what I mean? I don't give, like, what's coming out of your mouth is different to what I'm feeling. Do you know what I mean? So don't worry about whether it's...
I get you. If this was in text, it could be misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because apes experience envy, and that's been shown in the wild. So it's pre-verbal, this feeling. But that envy that you feel can either destroy you because you feel inferior, or it can boost you up and you think, well, if that person is being so brave to going to different fields that don't necessarily seem like they not belonging, but you're not tied down to one thing. And I am currently designing this kind of business for yoga teachers course for next year. And one of the things I'm highlighting in it is that you can teach yoga. Definitely. That's brilliant, man. Like, you'll survive, you'll make a living. But if you want to thrive, as Robert Greene says, the future belongs to those who can combine skills that seem unrelated, but do it in a way that creates value, creates something completely new. And that's creativity. So my question to you is, well, one, do you consider yourself a creative person?
The ability to be creative is just fundamentally in all of us, every single one of us.
Why are some people less, do you think? Or why are some people more?
Why are some people... Well, access and opportunity. Straight, like anything. Like, I feel like we're like plants. Do you know what I mean? Like, human beings and plants are like the same thing. So if we're growing next to this big fuck off tree with little light, poor fertility in the soil, we're going to wither, we're not going to grow. But you see people that are born into musical families and they get into music. You see David Beckham's kids wanting to play football. You see, it's what's around you and it's what you have access to. Like, how much pain and trauma was put on you? How much were you told that you were not good enough as a child? Where did you grow up in the birth lottery? Like, what access were you given? Some people have a natural flair for it, but I believe most people, it comes down to, for the vast majority, and you can ask any athlete at the top of their game or any artist, it's like, I'm obsessed with this thing. This thing I got access to at a certain age through whatever sort of circumstances, and now I'm doing it, and this is what I believe in. And I think for the most part, when people aren't successful, like, I was listening to this James Baldwin quote the other day, and he was like, art and success shouldn't go hand in hand. They just shouldn't. Because if you're being successful and you're getting paid to make art, it's going to influence the art that you're making straight away. You're going to be you're going to be making it because someone says it's good. And if someone ever tells you that they like your work or they're into your stuff, don't believe them. Only accept it if they can tell you why. Because most people say that they like something based on social norms or what they think the other person wants to hear or their own insecurities, so they'll give you love. But if they can't actually define to themselves why they like it, they're just going along with, the hordes of, this is cool, so this says something about me if I like this thing, so I'm going to say it about my own projected personality of who I am. So if they're like collecting things that they like because it says something about themselves, but they haven't actually reconciled with why they do or don't like it inside themselves. A lot of people don't go hard on that investigation. So why are people less creative than others, and why are some people more creative? I think some people are less creative because they don't have access to things that enable them to be creative in ways that can be perceived as art or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Yeah, it's interesting argument. nature versus nurture. Like if you're born into a musical family, you see that a lot, that people will pick up on what their parents do. I'm more conscious with my daughter because I'm conscious of how she's going to develop, but at the same time, not over-parenting. I mean, what interests me, and part of the reason I wanted to meet you is the song you did for me, for you. And I know it's nice for some things to be a mystery, but last night I held my father and his father in my hands. What does that mean? Can you say?
Yeah. I held my father and my grandfather in my hands.
As like a hug?
No, as babies. They were babies. Ooh. And they were in my hands. And I was in the middle of the Amazon and I felt their demon of alcoholism and addiction that raped and pillaged them their whole lives come into being, and they were there, like, energetically. I am them, yeah. Like, their semen mixed with eggs twice over ended up me being born, you know. So they're in my very essence, but energetically they hadn't shown up much in my life, you know. It was just really in this moment, other than the physical manifestation of them, me being born, they weren't ever really a factor in my life. And I went to do some deep inner work on myself, and it was like you're driving along in the car and you look in the rear view and you realise there's two people on the back seat, and I was like, oh, they're here, interesting, let's look at this. So there was a lot of darkness in one particular moment where I had to leave the Maloka and go out, because what was going to come I just knew was very, very dark. And at the end of a night of really getting rallied, it was really kicked the shit out of me. I had this moment of clarity where I was purging out both ends in the middle of the jungle, and I was so afraid of what was coming out of me, like from the phonetics to the actual sounds that were ringing through my body, and the full sense of body dissolution that was going on. I felt like what I was vomiting up was actually darkness. It was not good. It was a physical manifestation of it coming out, but energetically what it represented was darkness to me that I was letting go of, not for me but for my children, because I still hold on to certain patterns genetically, but also in deep in my subconscious as a fear I'll end up like my father and my grandfather that I never knew was there. That in this moment I began to realise that it was a deeper fear that I've always had my whole life. So I started to go pa 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 pa. I started to make sounds just as a defence mechanism, because I couldn't feel my body, but I knew I had my voice. So I was going pa 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 pa, and then my conscious mind kicks in. It's like pa 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 pa. You're saying Papa here. Oh, Papa, not just Dad or Father, but Papa, like a term of endearment. And it just reframed, and I was like, oh fuck, you're here, right? And then I saw my father on my right, in my right hand, like a baby, like the way you pick up your little daughter downstairs. You can hold them, you can hold a baby in your hand, like. And my grandfather was there, both weeping, just crying like children in my hands. And I just looked at them, and I just any sense of anger or resentment just left me, you know. And I was like, I get it, guys. I for the last 6-7 hours I've been feeling it. It's been coming true, what you've had to span over the course of your whole lives. That it took everything from you, this addiction. It made you a violent person. It made you a unreliable person. It drained the goodness and your ability to bear fruit in your lives from you. So I kind of held them in my arms. I hugged them. I told them it was okay, and I asked them, could I go in and lie down, because I was fucking bollocksed. And yeah, so I wrote that in a book, in a little copy book. Would have been August 2019, and didn't do anything with it for a year. Went back about my life, and then about 3 months ago I found myself home alone one night after having a few drinks, and wasn't drunk, but was merry. And I opened up that book again and sat down, and in 20 minutes I wrote the song. And from that's the song, you know. From there I went into the studio. We have a label, we have a producer who works with us, who's a dear friend of mine, Jack O'Donoghue was his name, and me and him went in and we kicked the shit out of various different ways of approaching it musically, and landed on what is now the single, which is the single version. There's acoustic versions that we're working on and stuff as well. But yeah, found music as a comfort. I was deeply lonely. I have been over the last kind of 3 months. Probably the biggest relationship in my life ended, and all that came with that was a lot of loneliness and pain and self-reflection. So the music kept me company during that time, big time. But what I unpacked was something very old in that time for me. It's been with me my whole life, but I use music as a form of just company. Just literally, I come home, I'd be a bit lonely in the gaff, like a house that we both lived in, engagement ring on the table, and I'd just be like, right, I'm fucking lonely, do you know, what am I going to do? So I would put on like instrumental beats, and I'd start writing, and I might smoke a little bit of weed to get the creative edge and comfort, and then before I knew it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm buzzing off my tits, and I have to kind of calm myself down to get myself to sleep. So, and then being able to go in and share music with Jack and with Liam O'Wanley and Ronan O'Snuddy and the brotherhood that's come into the life, and using music like, well, I make films about music. I've been making films about music for like 3 years, and no matter how big an artist or how much I'm inspired by someone, when they're talking about their craft, before I made music, I would always be like, that sounds like a cliche, even though I'd believe it, and I'd be sitting there going, I'm so grateful to hear you express your experience. Something in me just couldn't fully compute how much music means to people when they talk about their music, and oh my God, music is everything, literally everything to me. I'd be like, but there's a reason cliches exist, and I feel like through this process I've really understood like the sacred nature of music, like just why it punctuates and texturizes and comforts, and why it's the drug for everyone, you know, and every emotion, everything you need to feel. Music is protection, it's healing, it's access to different things, it's memories, it's your walk, it's your sleep, it's everything. So I feel like experientially I've really understood that, and I've had lovely people come into the life, like close, really, really close friends through it. And yeah, I've never experienced that, like the ability to, as someone who had never made music, you know, I'm 29 years of age, I've always done little bits and pieces by myself, but never released anything, just written bits, or I would never felt what I had to say was going to translate. And even in this, that's why it's called For Me, For You. I just did it for me. But in the process of that, I realised that there could be benefit for others. And I've gotten incredible feedback from it, from people that can connect to what the story's about. But also just losing myself in the making of it, like bending your mouth around words and having it, like being in the music as you're singing and as you're rapping or whatever you want to call it, like being in it, like not being separate from it or going over it or under it, but being in it, and kind of losing a sense of, oh, I'm Mark here in a booth doing this thing. It's like, no, you're the music, and that's the thing that I want to continue to do. Because that's real for me. That's something that's eternal. Like when you die, that still is a thing that people can tune into, that the frequency of music, and using the conditioned vessel of energy to allow sound, frequency, vibration, thoughts, expression, heart pour out, you know. So that's why I'm feeling like I'll be doing it more, and I have been, and that's why I would encourage anyone. Everyone has a voice. Like every bird in the forest has a song, and even that sounds like a fucking cliche, but it doesn't matter how bad you think you sound. Just if this is your way, if you're writing things that you feel like you should sing, or something's coming up, don't force it. But if something's coming up naturally, trust it. Like close the door, sit in your room on your own, and just hum or sing, and just bring yourself around it, because it's a real medicine. It's a real therapy for people. I think music and singing and opening. When you sing, I think your heart opens. You know.
Thing is, a lot of people will say, "I can't sing." Like if you go to a kirtan in yoga, the most common objection is, I can't sing, as opposed to I'm not that experienced singing. And maybe part of that is to shut off being in a room where you're vulnerable, because to sing is it's quite an emotional thing. Actually, when I was listening to your song, did Jack make the beat?
Yeah.
When I was
together we make it together, but yeah.
When I was listening to that song, I was in hospital, and I was on morphine. I'd just come out of my surgery, and I was very high. I was eating an egg sandwich, and I was like, oh yeah, that tune. I only listened to the first bit. I listened to like, I think half it, or I was kind of half listening to it. I was doing something else, but I put it on. I was lying in bed, and you know the bit at the end, well, obviously you know the bit, but where it says hands in, it's like the final kind of bass drop that takes a song. Yeah, it goes up, and it plays the song out, essentially, that bass drop. Mate, I got real emotional, man. I got like goosebumps and stuff, and you know, because it made me think about my dad and that relationship, and his dad, and I think that this has become a real common theme for me lately. Is understanding masculinity. You know.
Yeah.
Do you want me asking? You tell me to
First of all, thank you for saying that. Like, just that's why I'm doing it. I need affirmations like that from people. If they're like, I felt a certain kind of way, I got goosebumps, or whatever the fuck. Language is futile. Doesn't matter. But that's going to keep me making this. Like, do you know what I mean? So thanks for saying that.
I actually had to stop listening to it because I like killed it. You know when you
I rinsed it, yeah.
I rinsed it.
Nice, bro, lovely.
Completely rinsed it. I actually didn't even bother opening Spotify and putting back. What I did, I just hit the repeat one button.
Oh man!
And I was walking up and down the hospital hall with my like surgical stockings on, and I was kind of like just getting real into it.
Well,
and I thought, all right, I need to fucking stop listening to this song because I didn't want to ruin it. Never used too much, isn't it? Right?
That's a great image, man. I'd have to thank you for my Spotify numbers now. That's a great image. You walking around in your gurney and fucking listening to the tune. That's great. Real healing in that.
Oh, cool, man. But
go on. You were going to ask me something deep there, were you?
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind. Go on.
What's the story of your dad now?
My dad's dead. Yeah, he died when I was 19.
Oh shit.
So yeah. So I made a decision, like in the song. I said, "What's it like?" I never needed more than Ma's love. Not to see you, my choice. 13, hung over train and rain. Ma asked me out straight, "Son, do you think he's good for you?" And to this conclusion I came. You were just doing all you could to escape from a future for you. But with every single sup that you took, a step further from us, running from a love and a life that waited for you until you passed. Presently this dies with me, so our lineage is free. So that's the beautiful thing about music. It's universal and it's open. But yeah, that whole story, like everything in it is true. That's why I think it wrote itself in 20 minutes. Like my grandfather was a drunk. He was a husband. He was a man. He was a father. But ultimately, he was a drunk, and my ma and my dad were neighbours. So my two sets of grandparents they shared like the corner of a gaff. So there was the end of one street and the end of one street, and they both had a big side garden. And my ma remembers telling me, like she told me a few times, Mr. Mooney would come falling down the road of a Friday, fucking half scuttered. He'd be the first. There'd be many men on the road who would fall home scuttered of a Friday after they got paid, but he'd be the first, locked, falling into gardens and so on. But he actually died because he got hit by, I think it was a truck or a bus. I'm not that close to my dad's side, and it would be a weird thing to reach out to get validation on, like, is this the right lyric for my song where I'm talking about my grandfather getting killed? But he died falling home drunk from the pub, got hit by a vehicle and died.
Your granddad?
My granddad, my dad's dad. And my dad's dad beat them. Like he's known for beating his kids. Like as I'm sure so many, 50s, 60s, in the 70s, it was tough love. It was just like, get your fucking kids in order. His father, my grandfather's father, he would have been growing up in the 20s and stuff. It was just, that was discipline, So my father, I first remember him coming in when I was about 3. He got me like a red fire truck for Christmas, and I always remember that. And I was like, all right, this dude's my dad. Okay. Like, right, fair enough. And then in and out, maybe 7, I saw him 4 years later. And then there was one period where there was a conscious effort being made by him, I think, and me, and my mum. My mum never ever said anything bad about my father, never. Always told me great things about him. And I was 13, and I had gone to stay over at his house before I had a match the next day up in St. Kevin's Boys in Glasnevin. My ma came to pick me up. She said my eyes were just fucking in the back of my head, and she's like, all right. I said, fucking grand, I said, you sure, son? I had a few drinks with my dad last night. She's like, right, okay. So, I'm 13. My he bought me a Streets album in Tesco, and he's buying himself drink. He was the Streets, the original Poet Material.
Yeah.
So that was that period.
Yeah.
And he was like, do you want a drink, son? I was like, I'm 13. It's my dad. Fucking absolutely. I'm gonna have a drink with him. Of course I am. So in the car, I went training or to my match, and I probably didn't perform very well. I was really trying hard to make it in football at that point. And my ma just said it to me. She was like, do you want to go and talk to someone about this? And I was like, okay. So I went to this counsellor, and one session, I think it was a 2-hour long session. The kind of net of the session was she kind of helped me get there. She just held space. But she said that my belief was that with every single sup that he took, he was taking a step further away, basically, that I didn't really feel he was my dad. He was a drunk guy who happened to be my father when I hung out with him. Unless he was sober, I'm not really getting to know him. I'm getting to know the drunk version of him. So I think with her and my mum, after I made a decision at 13, I'm going to wait. until I'm a man to have this conversation with him, whatever that's going to be at the time. And then I think I was 19, and I had just gotten to play for St. Pat's. I made my debut in League of Ireland. I was in FIFA, the video game. I was on a fucking plane to Iceland playing Europa League. I was on the bench, and I remember being like, right, I feel ready. For whatever came up in me, I was like, whatever boxes I had to tick in my mind at that point. I was like, I've played football professionally now. I'm 19. I'm starting college. I'm gonna sit down with him and go, what was the crack there? Like, how come you never fucking showed up, or why weren't you around? Like, what's your life been like, you know? And I have a lot of stories about my dad, and I know a lot of my dad's friends. Like, one of his best friends lives in LA now, who I have spent like years living with, or in the same area as, because of that connection. And I've gotten like a lot. My dad's, I feel, done a lot for me since he's passed, which might sound crazy, but has brought a lot of energy, and I've gotten to know him more since he's passed, because when he was alive, he had so much, you know, energy and so much trauma, and he was a Mensa intelligent guy, but just numbed it with the drink, and he was into Buddhism, and he was super creative and fucking wild, and just would do whatever the fuck he wanted to do, but had all this energy that he couldn't harness. But yeah, my ma decided when I was 19 to go look for him. She got a private investigator, found out where he lived, and we'd found out that I think it was a month before I'd started to go looking for him, a year. So this was a year after we'd been looking for him. I found out that he'd passed. A year after we'd started looking for him, but I'd found out that he'd passed actually a month before we'd even started looking for him. He died of a stroke in, I think it was Torquay in England. And I remember I was rolling pre-rollers to go to Kings of Leon in Slane, 19, you know, we're talking 10 years ago. And I didn't shed a tear, man. There was no sense of, it was just like, oh, this has happened. And I've often thought about why I wasn't upset. And I think it's because you can't miss something that you didn't have. I never wanted for fuck all, like nothing. So it would be disingenuous for me to cry about it. I was like, I have no sadness in me. Like, he's given me the gift of life. Like, he never contaminated my mother's ability to raise me with his alcoholism. He stayed the fuck away because maybe he knew he wasn't the best energy. And my mum is an incredible woman, such a loving, supportive human, that my mom was just able to have autonomy in how she raised me. And sometimes one voice is easier than two arguing voices, or one drunk voice and one stressed voice, you know. So my nana stepped in a big way as well throughout my whole life, and they're kind of like my two people. So yeah, that's kind of the story around, I suppose, around his passing.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you didn't get closure, but it doesn't surprise me.
Give that shit to myself.
What's that?
He doesn't give me closure. Do you know what I mean? That's, I think,
give
what
it
I'm saying.
To yourself, yes,
yeah,
yes.
I give myself, like, and that's something that I think we all can. You can only give, like, when a relationship finishes or when someone dies, we all have this looking for closure, attachment to the person, attachment to the story. How did it end? I need someone else to say something to validate me. And I think I didn't even know it at the time, but I think I'd already had closure on his relationship to me from when I was 13. Because I'd made that decision, it wasn't this, I was like, nah, this isn't good for me, and I'll address it when I'm in full faculty and I'm able to handle it. And then I came to be in full faculty and able to handle it, and nothing needed to be addressed because he wasn't here. So the closure thing is like, yeah, I feel like I'm really healed with it, you know, through all the other stuff that came up about me not knowing that residual stuff was there. Like, when I went into the jungle, man, I was feeling like, oh, great, I'm having the best life ever. I'm going in here to just upskill and learn from the plants and the trees and do some deep inner work. I didn't think I had stuff there to heal. The plants showed me that I did, and the energy of Pachamama ayahuasca showed me that I have that there to be healed. And like I said, it was like looking in the rearview and being like, oh, you're here when you're in the most deep, vulnerable state. Like, oh, whoa, there's energies here that my conscious mind wasn't aware of or even had access to experience. But the subconscious, the lineage, holds that. The body, the energetic body that's been passed on holds that. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that because I do feel I got closure, but I also think it's important for people to hear that the only person that can give anyone closure over anything that they're going through is themselves, I feel, personally, in my experience. Yeah.
What you said about not feeling anything doesn't actually surprise me, because I don't want to speak about my dad explicitly because he's still alive, and hopefully long live my dad. But his brother was like that, you know, like his thing was a drunk and really bad, like but his son, my cousin, who, like, we were like brothers growing up, And same thing when he died. I said, how do you feel? He goes, I feel nothing. And although it shocked me, right, you know, if you grow up in a fatherless family or you have a father that's absent, the statistics are against you in terms of dropping out of school, going to jail, violent crime, and just basically like misbehaving, right? So you've beaten the odds. But I think what I'm curious about is, did you have a male role model that wasn't your dad, that almost stepped in for your dad? Or, and not even, sorry, Mark, doesn't have to be actually biologically male, but someone who filled that role who wasn't your mother, wasn't your granny?
Me. I was that person. And I discovered this in therapy 2 years ago. I had no male role models. So I took little bits from people around me who were men, who were in the life, like little bits. And I can give you examples of them, but there was no one partner or person that I could say, yeah, they really stepped in there as the figure of masculinity and healthy masculinity. But I discovered in that therapy session that because I didn't have a go-to obvious male archetype to say, oh, that's what a good man is, I made up my own internally. I created it from what I saw in other men around me. From my football team manager, like I got into football when I was 6, John O'Leary, phenomenal man. I was with him for 10 years, so I'm training twice a week there for an hour a night. Well, he's my football coach. He's got 16 other kids. Do you know what I mean? It never went beyond the professional and social aspect of playing for a football team. But outside of that, like, there was a couple of people that I would have looked up to in sport or music. Even the likes of like Eminem, Tupac, like early role models in music like that, where I was like, there's bravery there, but not taking all aspects and saying, this is the person I'm going to become, but rather just picking and choosing from different people. And I even see it now with like different elders, I call them, just men who are older than me, who are in my life that I admire elements of, but there's no archetypal, oh, that's them. Everyone's fallible. So the therapist helped me with it, and he was like, feels like you really just took little bits of every man that you met that you liked for whatever reason and muddled that with what you had to say, like, this is who I want to be, this is the type of man I want to be. And I think that's true. Like when it was said, and in the session I was like, you know, when something just rings, I was like, that feels fucking true. Like, it, because the story of my life can't point at any man really other than me. My mom is a very well-balanced human, like has a lot of masculine energy, but also has a lot of feminine energy, and is very strong-willed, but also very emotional and very open. I think my mom was probably that as well, you know, and Nana would be firm when she needed to be. So I just saw the masculine elements of women come through as well. So my mom had to be both at times. So if there's any one man, I would say that man was in my mom. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like from her own sense of masculinity, but there was no one archetype, I wouldn't say, or one or two people even. There was just a series of life. But like teachers and shit, I'd never got on with teachers, really. Some teachers I really got on with, but I didn't like the framework of the power dynamic in a classroom and stuff. So it was funny that there was no like teacher or whatever. Some teachers said horrible things. That's one thing I reflected on through making the song, that I had forgotten about some of the hard parts of being an only child and having a single mother. Like, if I got into some shit on the street, I knew other lads who were older than me or who had dads at home knew I didn't, and they would, like, sometimes other parents and other people out there would be like, he doesn't have a dad home, so we can fuck with him. Do you know what I mean? Because no one's going to come out and do anything about it. So that became a problem a little bit until I had to solve that and resolve that myself. And my ma, both of us had to solve that at one point. Then I remember I was in 4th class and my teacher came over to my ma and he said, what did he say? Mick Kenny is his name. He was a terrible teacher. But he went over to my ma and he put his arm around and he said, don't worry, Maria, I have him for the GAA next year. I'll put manners on him. And like, my ma was just like, instantly just creeped out and like, what do you mean you're going to put manners on him? Like, because he's curious, because he's eager to learn, like, you're going to try and shape my son. And he probably thought he was fucking doing her a solid, you know. I'm letting her know I'll give him the tough love as his teacher next year. And I didn't go back to that school. Like, the next year I was in a different school, and that was the school I stayed in for 9 years, so it was a blessing. But it's interesting, different people that will come into that space in totally the wrong way. And like, if that was the type of father figure that's coming in, where it's like teaching you a lesson, is going to show you something. I think children learn from their experience and what they see and what they pick up. I don't know about teaching anybody anything. I think you can just be the light, or be whatever way you are in the world, and if there's something to be learned from that, it will be learned by your child. And that's why I also believe in the fact that it takes a whole collective to raise, to give them different things that they need to see, variety and experience and background and all of that, and class, ethnicity, all of, they need to experience all of that to to become a rounded person. So that's interesting that you were talking earlier on about to overparent, or to be, hands off, or like how much do you do? And I think, I don't know, I'm not a parent, but I hope to one day be a father. And that's one thing I feel strongly about, is like, I don't want to be, I'm going to let the child just be curious about everything, and unless it's in serious danger, I'm going to let it figure it out. And if they come to me for advice or whatever, I'm going to turn it back on them and ask them what they think. And I think only through that can you fully help someone figure out the world. And I'm not saying I'm not going to protect them. Jesus Christ, I'll die for my family, I'll die for my children. But in the teaching, the bestowing of knowledge and experience, there's certain things that, like, okay, history or science or geography, all right, you can teach on that. But when it comes to what's right for a person, or them becoming their own individuated being, not being governed by your parental psychology and your belief system and what career you think they should get. And I think 99.9% of people who are growing up in the Western world are living in a complex of what mommy and daddy think is good for them, because the investment that was put into them, into college, into school, and what will the neighbours say, what will your cousin say, what will, so-and-so say if you don't do that job. Like, and I think we only reconcile with that. Some of us do it in the teens, some of us do it in the 20s, some of us do it in the 30s, some of us never fucking do it. And you realise, oh, why did I make these decisions? I was just funneled into this career because I had a series of multiple choice questions that one would like, yeah, that ticks the esteem box, that security. The family will like the fact that I'm doing that. They always said I should be a doctor, or they always said I was good at maths, or whatever the fuck. And like I said about people not really thinking about what they like and what they don't like, and why they like it and why they don't like it, the same thing comes down to, like, well, what is my calling? What am I on the planet to do? Do I feel, what's my true thing that I want to wake up every day and say, this is my fucking, I feel alive today. And I think so many people want to stay comfortable in the bubble of the structure of economy and society. And in doing that, in staying in the comfortable zone, they never fully really experience anything, because they throw away the keys to all the doors to really feeling pain and really feeling success and joy and fulfillment. But the safety is what we're told. Stay in the secure thing. Be secure. Be safe. Be warm. Like, we're so desensitized, even physically desensitized with heat and water. I think people just, comfort is success in today's world. Comfort is success. And for me, comfort is death. Do you know? Like, if you're not feeling uncomfortable, if you're not pushing yourself to change your views or fucking expand your palette of what it means to be alive, then we're all dying since the minute we're born, but you're really not living if that's what
spiritually
you're
dying quicker.
Yeah, you're really killing yourself there. Like, I think there's a reason why we seek out new experiences. I think they teach us things, and in that we expand who we are, and we get the fuck out of the way of the 13 billion year old thing that's going on, and we learn something in it.
You said protection, and Freud. Then this isn't a verbatim quote, but Freud said, because he said some mad things, a father's primary role is to protect their child. But what he meant by that, he also said successful mothers fail. So what he's getting at is, you're not protecting your child, for example, if you tell them that they're always right, because you don't want to hurt their feelings. That's not protection. The protection is you're providing an environment where they can experiment, where they can fail, and they can take accountability. This is why, like, say the basics with my, it feels weird saying my daughter, but my kid, whatever. Just it's weird just saying this at my.
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah, no,
I
it
had
is.
a daughter, I'd be focusing on my daughter. Non-stop.
Yeah, it's just weird for me to say. Anyway, but it's great. So like when I'm feeding her, this is a new one I learned the other day. No screen time at feed time. Eye contact, man. See the way I'm sitting opposite you right now? We're like 2 feet from each other. We're looking at each other. It's real intense, isn't it? But it's so powerful, isn't it? That's why I refuse to do Zoom calls. I like transition to Zoom. It's not the same, man. Like when you're talking to someone, and same with when you're holding a baby, you can tell when things are resonated by the iris, the pupils. You start breathing together in a similar cadence. And when I'm with her, I look at her. I'm like, I know it sounds mad, but like, and it sounds like nothing, but okay, yeah, probably because you're a bit mad, but but you know, you're.
It sounds
out there.
So fundamentally human.
I know.
Look in your daughter's eyes when you feed her.
But I suppose, yeah. Do you know what?
So it's mad that you think that's mad. That's what's mad.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right. I think it's because I seen an accountant yesterday, so this is like the opposite. You know,
you're putting him in a box now. How do you know he's not off to the jungle? Do you know what I mean?
Could be into like sadomasochism. Who knows?
Who the fuck knows? He could be into fucking
wearing suspenders underneath his trousers.
Yeah, you never know.
Sorry, Brendan. But yeah, but you know, like sometimes you meet certain. Anyway, back to that point about looking, right? So I'm looking at we're picking up loads of stuff from each other, and supposedly in the first 3 months, although they can't speak, they learn loads from your face, from expressions, little micro expressions. And so I'm real conscious of that. But I am very wary of this overparenting. And the thing is, although if you would look at you on paper, you know, single mom, grandmother, that's great. Again, the statistics are against you, but you what's the word? You succeeded despite that, right? And when I say succeed, I just mean you'll have a lot of creative energies into doing stuff that you really enjoy, and I think if you can be creative and earn a living from it, you're very lucky. Maybe lucky is the wrong word, but my point is though, you often find a lot of great men don't come from a great man, and I think, like, I'll take my cousin for example. Well, I won't go into detail about him, but he's has a great life, right? And I think part of that is that you realise there's no safety net, both financially and also in terms of a mentor. You've got to be your own mentor, as you said.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm just conscious of with her, and hopefully we have more kids as well, is to try to bring them up in an environment where they're challenged. Like my mum used to slap us when we were young, but just to spank, you know, and that's a wooden spoon job, you know. But I love her to bits. I'd do anything for her. So, but if you were to say now, like, oh, I spank my kids, that would be heavily frowned upon. And I've started to realize that I need to kind of rein it in with the overparenting a little bit. But I don't know how best to do that, because part of it is like doing the vaccine thing, man. I was thinking we're not going to get a vaccine, but then what if we didn't get a vaccine and something goes wrong? What I have to ask you, sorry mate, but we embraced when you came here. What are your thoughts on C19?
It's life, isn't it? It's just a new reality. It's definitely real. Do you know what I mean? It's definitely real. We have our own responsibility in how we respond to it, but I think it's brought a lot of stuff to the surface that needed to be looked at, you know. We've reacted incredibly fast as a whole global nation to this. You could get into the politics of it, you could get into the origins of it. The fact that it happened, and it makes it true, so it is in reality now. We could respond in very different ways. As you know, you read the news, you see countries like New Zealand, Australia acting in a certain way, and then you see countries like England and the US behaving and acting in a different way. So I think it's brought a lot of morality, like national, when I'm talking about nations, morality to the surface, like who cares more about economy or who cares more about the vulnerable members of the society. But it's made us think a lot more about the most vulnerable members of our society, and I think that's a good thing. It's made people really fucking sit with themselves. It's a very difficult thing to do when you're isolated, literally isolated, imposed by the state. A lot of people have lost jobs, a lot of people have lost lives. I just hope that we can rise out of it in a better state collectively, with more compassion and awareness, and an ability to respond very quickly to something that threatens us. So the climate would be another one of those that it's not as imminent, or like, you know, just create a vaccine and then it's solved. With the climate, it's a much more nuanced, but it's not really. It's just like we just need to change quickly to save the planet that we're living on. So yeah, there's a lot of growth in it, I think, but there's a lot of fucking pain and suffering in it as well. That is just undeniably true, you know. So
what have you realised personally?
what have I realised personally because of the coronavirus? How much I am in love with humans. I really love people. I really love people. How little I need to actually be in a city. How little I actually get value from, how little and how much, funny, it's a duality, how little and how much I get value from what I create. Like the whole idea of, you know, I saw, and you probably witnessed this during first lockdown, and everybody was like, oh, I'm being so productive at home, I get so much done, And it's like, yeah, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, like, why are you measuring your productivity? And it made me inquire into my own, like, if I'm not making something, if I haven't just put myself through the ringer there to make films that people will enjoy, that have a positive output, what is my value? And I've gone through phases of letting go of that. You know, like 3 years ago, I lived in a shed at the bottom of a fucking garden in Hawaii with like not a pot to piss in, just $20 in my pocket, living off the land. And in 3 years, I've grown a company and a group of people that I love, and a profile, or a portfolio, should I say, of work that I love, that it seems to be growing. But is that who I am? Is that my value? I don't think it is. I think my value is much deeper than that, and that's why I love to travel. That's why I'm going to Mexico for Christmas. I'm just getting out of here because I'll do it in a safe way, and don't fucking cancel me for going to Mexico for Christmas. But like, I feel like when I'm traveling and I have nothing attached to me, no one knows what I do, no one knows who I am, I'm just meeting the world on my own terms. That's when I find out who I am without anything else. Or when I go to the jungle in February, like, and I'm just in a hut for a month and I'm just drinking, you know, plants, and I'm really, you know, cleaning out my body and my mind. That's who I am. That's the person. That's the energy at the core of it. All the other shit is just noise. It's temporary. So I think, yeah, I've realised I can really go far in one direction and use work because I love what I do and I love everyone who's involved, as a distraction, as what the outer world will reinforce as a healthy fucking distraction for me. But that's not really what is the deeper down fulfillment, because that's just filling a void. I think deeper down, me in a healthy routine, or not even, I hate routine, but in a healthy flow, yeah, I think that's what I learned, is that I do need it all and I can lean on it a lot, or I can actually just step away from it all, because I realise that it's all temporary and impermanent anyway. But not to get my value from that thing. That doesn't make me valuable. It's just a perceived value online or whatever, but that's not really what's important. What's important is what's in the heart, you know, and how are you thinking about yourself, your life, others, the world, and are you being a healthy, happy, healed, self-aware fucking person? Do you know, do you understand that? And but I could just live in nature, man. I honestly do think that that's probably the long term. I'll have that duality imposed by myself, where I'll just take time out to go and be away from all of this stimulation, and then I'll come back in, like, just make stuff that I love and be connected and be in the cities and travel, and then come back away again. And I think that's probably going to be my rhythm long term. That would be what I would like to do. To
live in the countryside in Ireland?
Potentially, yeah, or just outside of the city, or potentially travel for, like, you know, 3-4 months of the year in remote places and live and learn from there, and then come back to like a suburban part of Dublin. Like, I'm going to move to Artane in 3 weeks, or yeah, somewhere proper rural and like grow veg and have animals, and like, but I'd see that more being much further on, maybe 30 years down the line, when I'm at the peak of my life, when I'm 60, you know. So we'll see.
Yeah, I was chatting to Dave at the Space Between, in the yoga studio.
I love Dave. Yeah, he's great.
He's a great guy. And he referenced Douglas Rushkoff. And Douglas Rushkoff is a lecturer about technology. And his philosophy is, don't integrate with technology, disintegrate it. That's the word. Like, it's not going to... See, my short-term plan is to live in the countryside and be able to do a lot of my work online, right? But at the same time, I don't want my kids being having screens in front of them all the time. And if they see that so it's a real tricky. Yeah. And if you live in the countryside, I went down to Clock Jordan. Is it in Limerick or Tipperary? Somewhere down there anyway. Do you know where it is? No. Organic village with like 112 residents. Organic village. They get
deadly.
Yeah. But went down there. The deal breaker, incredibly slow internet, almost like dial-up internet. So like, how am I going to make a living down here? Like growing veg and stuff is just not going to cut it. And I think that is the difficulty. People like me, you maybe, that have these ideas of like living in the countryside and having access to the city are in, if you want to have a family as well, because unfortunately, although I'm not hugely driven by money, when you're paying for nappies and formula and all this stuff, it does add up. That's something I haven't figured out yet. But
improved internet globally, like fiber power just everywhere, would enable us to decentralize from cities and live more in harmony with nature. Like if everyone just invested in that, we could all live anywhere on the island and serve those communities better with the income that we earn through being able to work online. You know, it's like, that's the next step, I think.
5G?
I don't know. I'm not into that.
Hey.
I don't know. I just don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
It's just another fucking catchphrase to me. But like, is fiber power 5G, is it?
I don't know.
I just said fiber power. Just the best fucking internet you can get, or whatever, without causing any issue for anyone, just, or needing to wear fucking tinfoil hats or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, just that thing, if that happened, we could all decentralize from cities, you know, reduce the waste, reduce pollution, reduce fucking all of this nonsense that we're creating just from not living in harmony with nature. You could do this, you could get your fucking sponsors on, you could have a great podcast and do it remotely and bring value to people's lives, and you're going to be in a better place because you're living where you want to live, not where you have to live. You know, so your output will be hopefully better for people as well. So it's like, yeah, it's a very simple logistical thing. Like, let's get good internet everywhere, and then we can all disperse a little bit better and serve those communities. Because there's so many, you drive through Ireland and you see so many towns are on their fucking knees. You know, there's no money in them, and they're beautiful. They're in beautiful parts of Ireland. They're in, you know, same in other countries, but people can't live there because the commute is shit or the infrastructure is terrible, because they need to be in the place that they work. And that's just so fucking 100 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't need to be anywhere, well, unless you're working in a shop, but then you're setting up your shop there. That's your whole life. That's a decision. I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, very interesting. Mark, mate, that was fantastic. If people want to find you, your handle on Instagram is Mark William Logan.
Mark Logan with 2 M's. Mark Logan. Not Narc Logan, just Mark.
2 M's, yeah. Mate, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.